Hey guys, in this video I will show you how to add a frequency chart and a histogram to your Excel file. So if this is the first time you're doing a histogram, we actually have to do one extra step. We're going to go to File, Options, Add-ins, Analysis Toolpack, and then hit Go on the bottom. Make sure Analysis Toolpack is checked, and then hit OK. What that does is it actually imports a tool that we will now use to create the frequency chart and the histogram. Without doing that step, the tool to complete that doesn't exist. So now we're going to go to Data, Data Analysis, and here is where we can create our histogram. Before we create the histogram, we actually need to create what we call bins, which are essentially the thicknesses of the bars along the x-axis. So when we do a bin, we're going to manually type in numbers. And we want these numbers to represent the groupings for all of our data. So when you are choosing your lower limit of the bin, you got to look at what your minimum is and what your maximum is. Then you got to choose a value a little bit underneath the minimum and then a little bit above the maximum. So my minimum over here is 4.75. So I'm going to choose a value at 4.75 or a little bit lower than it. And then the highest value looks to be 6.33. And then you got to choose the interval distance. So I'm going to choose 4.5. And I'm going to count by 0.25. So then 4.75. And I can keep going. But if you type in the first two, you can actually highlight those two cells and then copy the logic down. And it'll know to add 0.25. And if you look, it says 5.5, 5.75. It'll give you a preview of what the last number is. So you have to go one cell beyond your maximum. So 6.25, nope, 6.33 is my max. 6.5, that's good. I might right click, hit Format Cells, and make this category the number so it looks a little bit nicer. I'll just kind of get in the habit of giving it good formatting. So I'm going to go ahead and add a quick all border and then a thick border. Now we are ready to do the histogram and the frequency chart. I'm going to go to Data, Data Analysis, and choose Histogram, and hit OK. Where it says Input Range, you need to highlight the array of your decimal feet. Under Bin Range, click here. I'm going to select my intervals. Then I'm going to go to Output Range, and this is where your data will appear. So when you do output range, just choose a cell a little bit to the right of where you have your data, because if you do it over here, it'll actually overwrite anything. So I want to highlight something real quick. When I did I3, it actually overwrote my input range. You got to be careful. So I'm going to do that again. Input range is this. And when I do output range, see how it highlights that by default? You have to make sure you select the space for output range, then select the cell. The last step, and don't forget this one, is you need to choose Chart Output, and then hit OK. And now my histogram appeared. Now we're going to now clean this up a little bit to make it even cleaner and look nicer. I'm going to delete this frequency over here. I don't need to see that. And it says More over here, and basically just take a pause for a second and show you what we have. Right now we are saying that we have 0 instances between or less than 4.5. We have 1 instance between 4.5 and 4.75. 0 instances between 4.75 and 5, and so on. So this is your frequency chart, and then here is your histogram plotting this. More is saying, are there any data values that don't fit in any of these categories? We have none because we chose our bin carefully. So we're actually going to delete this and watch what happens in this area over here when I delete more and 0. Just makes it look a little bit nicer. You could make this longer if you wanted, give yourself more space. And let's change the chart title. I'm going to click histogram and then double click in the space, and let's call this heights of students. Let's make the x-axis label. We'll call this heights, and then we'll put parentheses, decimal feet. I think frequency is fine by itself. Let's add some grid lines. So I'm going to click in this area over here, come up to the chart where it says chart tools, go to design, add chart element, grid lines, primary, major, horizontal. Looks nice. And then let's also make these bars a little bit thicker. So I'm going to double click just on any of the blue bars, any one. And then when it says series overlap, let's keep that at 0. And we'll have the gap width, say, 5%. So I'm going to type in 5% and then hit enter. Close it out. And now we have a good histogram, well formatted. I do want to show you one more thing, and this is going to be a quick way to give you all your summary statistics, your mean, your median, your mode, your range, your min, your all that data. We're going to go back to where we were before, data, data analysis. But instead of hitting histogram, now I'm going to hit descriptive statistics and hit OK. Input range, I'm going to do this is my input range. My output range, I'm going to just choose a cell over here. And then make sure you turn on summary stats over here and then hit OK. And what that did, let me make that column a little bit wider. It tells me my mean, my median, my mode, my standard deviation, my range, my min, my max, my sum, how many values I have. It does give you a few extra pieces of data that we are not going to get to in this class, but it does give you the ones that we also care about. One other thing to note is that when you select the value over here, it's just the number. So if you were to ever change any of your inputs, this will not update automatically. Whereas if I had my average and I said equaled average, and then I highlighted these cells, this is a formula. Notice how they're the same. But if I was to change the height, say this guy was 10 feet, 6 inches, notice how this average will change, but this one will not. So if you ever have an instance where you might be changing your inputs, this will not work. If you know that you are done with your inputs and you're set, this will be a faster way to get all your information. All right, that's it.